Danny Kane.
Frank Kane.
The Paradise Club.
The new series.
It's different.
Lots of interesting things happen.
To a lot of people.
Some of it evil.
And some of it good.
The Paradise Club.
Don't miss it. All right?
The 9 million people who read Radio Times are now enjoying an even better magazine. As well as being the most colourful programme magazine and the easiest to use, Radio Times is now an even better read, full of stories about the stars and personalities of your favourite programmes, with a complete guide to the week ahead. In fact, everything you could possibly want to know about television and radio. Radio Times, the most entertaining way to put yourself in the picture.
In half an hour on BBC One, we join Lady Victoria Leatham, who's back with a new series of visits to Britain's stately homes, the scene of Heirs and Graces, beginning with probably the grandest of them all, Blenheim Palace. First, Barry Norman reviews another batch of recent releases in Film 90. Good evening. In the programme tonight, Harrison Ford talks about his new film, Presumed Innocent, in which he plays a lawyer accused of killing his mistress. Surely not. Harrison Ford doesn't strike me as the kind of man who'd have a mistress, let alone kill her. Still, that's the film he talks about, while the films I'll be talking about include Another 48 Hours with Eddie Murphy and Nick Nolte, and Longtime Companion, which deals with the effect of AIDS on middle-class homosexuals in New York. First, though, I Love You to Death, an aptly titled, darkish sort of comedy based on a true story, in which Tracey Ullman, with the aid of assorted incompetence, makes 5 unsuccessful attempts to kill her husband, Kevin Kline. Kline is a philandering pizza parlour owner, complete with comic Italian accent, who can't keep his hands or any other part of his person off women. Ullman, the trusting spouse, refuses to believe this until she sees him necking with someone else in the public library. Then, reacting with the traditional fury of the woman scorned, she enlists the aid of her mother, Joan Plowright, complete with comic Yugoslavian accent, in a plot to kill him. The first attempt, by a man with a baseball bat and an Abraham Lincoln mask, is a dismal failure, as indeed are all the others.
Wrong house. Oh, son of a bastard. Rosalie!
It was unbelievable. It was this match. Come on in, sit down here. I appreciate you coming over so quick.
Well, it's okay.
You ever hear of such a thing? Trying to hit me with a baseball bat? My God, it's unbelievable.
Rosalie, what are you doing? Get Detective Scooney here a cup of coffee.
Oh, no, I'm okay, Rosalie. Thank you.
No, Larry, it's okay. She'll make your coffee in 5 minutes.
Oh, thanks, Joey. I'm trying to give it up.
No, come on, please. You give up coffee? Oh, never heard of that.
Makes me jumpy.
Jump. Rosalie, how about some bacon and eggs for Larry? He's a good man. He works hard.
Nothing for me, thank you. Rosalie, please sit down. I didn't come here for breakfast, Joey. Okay, from the beginning.
Sure, from the beginning. Okay, some maniac in Abraham Lincoln mask tries to brain me with a baseball bat. That's the whole story.
Yeah, could you say what they look like?
Yeah, he looked like Abraham Lincoln coming up to bat.
Well, later on, the introduction of 2 bottles of sleeping pills into Kline's pasta does look for a moment as though it might have done the trick, but a satisfactory bowel movement returns him to mid-season form. So the attempts on the errant husband's life become more and more desperate and involve the likes of River Phoenix as Miss Ullman's ardent admirer and a couple of spaced-out hitmen in the shape of William Hurt and Keanu Reeves. Through it all, Kline not only survives, but is totally unaware that anything untoward is going on. Every atrocity visited upon him he attributes to an unidentified virus he must have picked up somewhere.
Are you all right?
Am I all right? Am I all... Why are you asking me if I'm all right? He's the one who got shot.
Maybe you better sit down.
No! I don't want to sit down.
Yeah, what about Joy? Yeah, there is a life of that.
I don't know.
Blood.
Oh. No, tomato sauce.
Tomato sauce.
Yeah.
Did you shoot him or not?
I think so.
What do you mean you think so? I heard a shot.
I shot him, but I don't know if I hit him. I mean, I turned my head away at the last second. I'm sorry, but I couldn't bear to watch.
Oh, I thought you knew about guns.
I never shot anyone before.
Oh, don't worry. I understand. There's a first time for everything. I read about a dental hygienist in Cleveland was going for the first time.
Mama, never mind. Oh, wait, here's some blood.
Let me see. What is it?
Oh, I think it's a bullet hole. It's very small.
A bullet hole? Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure.
Is he dead?
Joey.
Rosalie.
Joey.
What?
I don't feel so hot. Got a little headache. My stomach don't feel so hot neither.
You got a virus, honey. That's all, a virus.
Virus? How can you tell?
Dr. Lowe was here.
He was?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah, he was here, and he gave you a shot.
Hey, glass of water.
Yes.
Rosalie, maybe I'd take a couple aspirin, too.
The fact that the entire story, including the improbable ending, is indeed based on truth gives the film a bizarre fascination. If a scriptwriter had merely invented it, it would be almost impossible to suspend disbelief. As it is, it just about works. Despite a tendency to ham it up, Kevin Kline provides some pretty funny moments, and Joan Plowright even more, while Tracey Ullman, an Emmy winner this week for her now-defunct American TV series, handles a basically straight role very nicely. It could be argued, and should be argued, that the director, the usually admirable Lawrence Kasdan, might have kept a tighter rein on the over-the-top antics of his guest stars, Hurt and Reeves. But the main problem with the movie, possibly not unassociated with the fact that the real-life protagonists are still with us, is that the comedy might, with advantage, have been a lot blacker. After all, what the wife tried to do was, to say the least, deplorable, and the effects, especially on the husband, and much as women might think he had it coming to him, can't have been quite as jolly as they seem here. But now it's time for our regular rundown of the top 10 films in the UK. At 10, The Guardian, nasty nanny Jenny Seagrove brings terror to Tinseltown. Nine is Wild at Heart, Nicolas Cage and Laura Dern on the run in David Lynch's surreal road movie. 8, The Big Man, unemployed Scottish miner Liam Neeson in a bare-knuckle fight for money and his life. 7 is Days of Thunder. Robert Duvall and Nicole Kidman encourage the driving ambition of Tom Cruise to be the best. At 6, Pretty Woman. Unhappy hooker Julia Roberts and tycoon Richard Gere get together in this Pygmalion parable. 5, Gremlins 2, The New Batch. Skyscraper silliness as the little monsters run amok in Manhattan. 4, Wild Orchid. Mickey Rourke swathes his way through a script of weeds and nettles. At 3, Total Recall. A Mars bar a day helps Arnie work, rest and slay. 2 is Die Hard 2. Bruce tackles terrorists on the tarmac in this Yuletide yarn. But straight in at number 1, Memphis Belle, a dramatic boy's own story of the World War II struggle for survival in the skies. In effect, Long-Time Companion is a chronicle of the devastation caused by AIDS in a community of bright, attractive, intelligent young men in New York. It begins around 1980, a carefree, promiscuous time when at a party on Fire Island, Willie Scott Campbell meets the hirsute Fuzzy Stephen Caffrey, and they decide to set up house together. But on that same day, a brief story in the New York Times reveals the discovery of a new kind of cancer that appears to affect only homosexual men. From there on, the film flashes forward through the 80s as one by one the close friends of Willie and Fuzzy are afflicted and die, to be mourned euphemistically in the obituaries as long-time companions. Now, by definition, this is a grim tale, though Craig Lucas's script gives it a leavening of grace and humour by pointing up the love and care and fortitude displayed by victims and survivors alike.
I've had everything you're not supposed to have, you know. I've had herpes, I've had amoebas. Just feeling guilty because you didn't go to the hospital when John was dying. If you say that one more time, I swear I'm gonna beat your face in. I didn't know John was dying. I'm sorry. I feel that something's happening in my body. Now, I'm not talking about John. I'm talking about me. I feel like something is stalking me. I know you think I'm being melodramatic. Did you sleep with someone else? No. Well, then you can't have AIDS. Because I haven't touched another man since we were in Key West, 1980. Unless you can pick it up on a toilet seat. I don't know how long it's going to take to germinate. Well, it's not going to take 4 years. Incubate? Incubate. Did you sleep with John? No, I did not sleep with him. Then there's nothing to worry about. My side of the bed was soaking this morning. Well, so was mine, because it's summer. In the summer, it is hot, and we don't have air conditioning. What? I'm not a child. Stop talking to me like I'm a child. I know. I'm sorry you're upset. I love you. No, you don't. But it's okay.
Now, all those involved are interesting people, writers, lawyers, actors, and one would have liked to know more about them. But increasingly, characterization gives way to a catalogue of disaster. During the course of the story, we learn a lot about the peripheral effects of AIDS. For instance, the difficulties homosexual men begin to have in finding employment, insurance, and housing, and the drastic change in their lifestyles. But the people remain pretty much as they were when we first met them. Long-Time Companion is thoughtful and occasionally very touching, but by concentrating solely on this one special group, it does rather overlook the fact that by the end of the 80s, we were all only too horrifyingly aware that AIDS is not a disease reserved solely for homosexual men. Potential audiences might be well advised to bear that in mind. You might also bear in mind that there's a special showing of the film to benefit the AIDS charity Frontliners at the Cannon Shaftesbury Avenue on Thursday night. But now to Harrison Ford and Presumed Innocent, a courtroom drama and whodunit taken from an extremely well-plotted novel by Scott Turow. In this, Ford plays a prosecuting attorney who's himself prosecuted for the murder of his mistress, Greta Scacchi. Tom Brook has been talking to H. Ford and the director, Alan J Pakula, and this is his report.
Molto and DeLay have raised some questions about the Polhemus investigation.
This should not be handled this way. You should speak with Rusty alone.
What's this about?
It's about the fact that you were in Carolyn's apartment the night she was killed.
Harrison Ford plays the central character in Presumed Innocent, a respected prosecutor who becomes alarmed when a colleague, with whom he's had an affair, is found brutally murdered and raped. Soon he discovers that the criminal justice system, whose values he has so solidly upheld, turns against him as he becomes the prime suspect in the case.
I had a real emotional reaction to the dilemma of this guy, the character that I play, to his circumstances, and I felt a real empathy for him. As well, it was a character different to what I had lately done.
In what ways did you empathize with the character?
Well, I think he's a character worthy of our sympathy. He's a hardworking, devoted family man who once in his life was drawn into an affair with a manipulative woman, and it became a compulsive, obsessive sexual relationship.
It's gonna be so good.
Greta Scacchi makes an impressive American feature film debut as a femme fatale, the sexually manipulative co-worker and murder victim who appears only in flashback and draws Rusty Sabich into trouble.
She may seem hard and unfeeling, but it's a complex that she has. It's an insecurity that she has that makes her behave the way that she does. You know, I feel a lot of sympathy for her. I feel a lot of sadness for her.
Director Alan Pakula was fascinated by one of the underlying themes in the film, how sexual obsession can overwhelm a seemingly controlled and responsible individual like Rusty Sabich.
I love the kind of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde thing of inside all of us may lead good and decent, responsible lives. There may well be the fantasy of that kind of sexual obsession. And occasionally there are people who think they have so sure they have such control over themselves, and as in the case of a prosecutor, who despise people who don't and prosecute them, who suddenly find them that they themselves can lose control. Well, that kind of progression, that surprise progression, showing the two opposite 180-degree ends of a human being, never fails to fascinate me.
But one of the weaknesses of Presumed Innocent is that it falls short in bringing to life the full heat of the sexual obsession that drives Rusty Sabich. Other aspects of the story, particularly subtleties, get lost in adaptation from bestseller to big screen. Some of the characters, like the tough trial judge, are far more fleshed out in the book than they are in the film, posing a challenge for the actors.
Certainly in the book, you learn a lot more about the judge than you do in the film. His background, what he went through, how he got where he is. But since I knew all of that, I thought I'd be the best one to sort of bring it to the screen.
But the screenplay, based on the bestseller by lawyer-turned-novelist Scott Turow, does at least give an insider's view of American justice, that, although less than flattering, is probably far closer to the truth than that found in most Hollywood films. The justice system is revealed as far from impartial, comprised of imperfect individuals.
The film paints a pretty dark view of the American justice system. Do you think it's an accurate view?
Well, no, I wouldn't call it a dark view. Whilst the criminal justice system doesn't work in this case the way it is meant to work, and certainly it is flawed by it's complicated and flawed by the flaws of the people who are involved in it. It is a construction of human beings, so imperfect. Nonetheless, justice of a rough sort, and not without irony, does prevail.
I want to testify.
What'd you say?
I'd say you're the only man I ever loved.
Rusty Sabich, by all accounts, has a loving wife, yet he appears to jeopardize domestic bliss for an illicit affair. Some feel the film contains an underlying conservative message, that those who stray from family life, like Rusty Sabich, will be severely punished. But Alan Pakula says he isn't trying to preach.
The story has very specific meanings for me, but I'm a filmmaker. I'm not giving a Sunday sermon. I think you come at it with very strong feelings. Sometimes people can't help themselves, or it depends on what you want to take out of that. That we are a strange combination of very, very different things.
But most audiences aren't concerned with these deeper, loftier interpretations of the film. What they want to know is, does Presumed Innocent work effectively as a whodunit? And on that issue, there's mixed opinion. Some moviegoers have found the film slow to get going and solemn, whilst others have been spellbound right from the very beginning. At any rate, Presumed Innocent continues to do impressive business at the American box office.
Well, as Tom said, Presumed Innocent has done pretty well in America, and it opens here on September the 28th. Meantime, I'd certainly recommend the novel, but that presents a problem, doesn't it? I mean, if you read the book first, it'll spoil your enjoyment of the film. But if you see the film first, well, decide for yourselves. Meanwhile, Brian Dennehy, one of the featured players in Presumed Innocent, is currently to be seen starring in Blue Heat. In this, he plays a Los Angeles police lieutenant who, with his hand-picked undercover team of Joe Pantoliano, Jeff Fahey and Bill Paxton, is hot on the trail of a deadly gang of drug dealers. But when he and the lads track the evildoers to their headquarters in a meat-packing plant, the backup Dennehy requires is strangely slow in getting off its backside, and the eventual raid is a total screw-up. What is going on here? Well, what's going on is a half-assed conspiracy story, apparently prompted, I might have said inspired, but there's nothing inspired about this movie, by Irangate. People in very high places are using drugs money to send state-of-the-art weapons to loony right-wing revolutionaries in South America. And the only way Dennehy and the remains of his crew, one of them unfortunately having been bumped off, can get to grips with this situation is by resigning from the police force and, armed to the teeth like any self-respecting American citizen, carrying on the conflict as civilians.
Before the formal hearing begins, Lieutenant Daly, let me fill you in on the procedure. You have been charged with violating your inactive status, resulting in the fatality of Officer Howard Jones. The med-psych report notes obsessive, stress-related behavior. Now, departmental regulations state.
Let me make it easy on you, Commander.
Frank, you'll have a chance to respond at the proper time.
I resign. We might as well save ourselves a lot of bullshit here. I quit. That's really what you want, isn't it? They're burying us in their shit out there. And when you finally get rid of all the cops like me, who's gonna stop them? You?
Now, what follows all that is pretty fair old nonsense, and Brian Dennehy, an actor I've long admired, is clearly aware of it, because he goes through most of the movie wearing the secret smile of one who knows the script is rubbish, but the pay is good. The political implications, which might have been interesting, are skated over with all the impact of a fly on an ice rink. And the one moral dilemma faced by Dennehy and his team, should they keep the vast sum of laundered and therefore untraceable money they've inadvertently taken from the drug smugglers, is dismissed so briskly that it's hardly a dilemma at all. Blue Heat is seriously weary stuff, and even the talented British director John Mackenzie, maker of The Long Good Friday, can do little to breathe energy into it. But now for some movie news. The pleasantly surprising hit of the Venice Film Festival was the screen version of Tom Stoppard's excellent play Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. The picture won the Golden Lion Award for Best Film, and the Silver Lion went to Martin Scorsese's Goodfellas, a mafia movie based on the true confessions of Harry Hill, the Supergrass. Meanwhile, in Birmingham, which as we all know is Venice without the water, the 6th local film festival starts this Friday. Pictures on offer include Ghost, the unexpected hit of the US summer season, which stars Patrick Swayze as Demi Moore's deceased lover come back to protect her. And there's also Spike Lee's latest, Mo Better Blues, with Denzel Washington as a jazz trumpeter. And finally, the humble and sometimes incomprehensible subtitle is given a welcome touch of class in Cyrano de Bergerac, starring Gérard Depardieu. Anthony Burgess has translated Edmond Rostand's French verse into elegant English. And so finally to another 48 Hours, and if you're expecting this to be anything like as good as the original 48 Hours, or even just a little bit better than Blue Heat, forget it. Just to remind you, in 48 Hours, a splendid thriller, cop Nick Nolte gets wisecracking crook Eddie Murphy out of jail to help him solve a crime. So what's changed since then? Well, not the plot, really. That's pretty much the same. It's in more subtle ways that another 48 Hours is different. For example, this is an Eddie Murphy production as well as a Paramount production, so it may not be entirely a coincidence that this time round Eddie Murphy gets bigger billing than Nick Nolte. And perhaps it's also a sign of relative prosperity that where before Nolte was fat and Murphy was slim, Nolte now has a lean and hungry look, while Murphy is distinctly on the plump side. But if you overlook such details, you'll find yourself back in familiar territory as Nolte gets Murphy out of prison, yes, again, to help him nab a big, bad drugs baron.
This is where we lived until we split up.
She moved up to Mill Valley. I've been trying to sell it. 12 grand a year's went for the down payment.
Man, how could you leave my car outside all these years? Why'd you put it in the garage? Look at that dirt all over it. What if somebody stole it?
Yeah, I had an alarm put on it. Here. Now you just push this blue button right there.
You have no appreciation whatsoever for what's hype. That's what it is. You don't know that that car is fly. You know how much pussy I got because of that car? They blew up my car! They blew up my car! They blew up my car!
It's a damn shame.
They blew up my goddamn car and all you got to say is a damn shame?
No car, no money, you're having a bad day.
So, as you can see, Nolte and Murphy start off by bickering and snarling at each other. Yes, again. And then, just as before, gradually develop a grudging affection. Nolte growls a lot, Murphy cracks wise, and there's a great deal of violence. It's a tired sort of story with a tired sort of script. And that normally fine director, Walter Hill, just seems to let it happen. He does stir himself a bit for the action sequences, but otherwise it looks as if he was simply jogging on the spot.
You got a gun? What? You know a gun in case you stick the place up. All right, knock this shit off. I have been having a very bad day. Just got out of jail this morning. Already I have been shot at. I was on the bus that flipped over 17 times. A bitch tried to stab me in the bathroom, and somebody blew up my Porsche. I am in a bad goddamn mood. Now, I usually don't jump in when somebody's getting beat down, but this man, Jack Cates, is gonna help me straighten out the rest of my day. Now, I suggest y'all back up and let us go about our business.
Because you got a gun?
No, because I have a gun and I'll pop a cap in your ass.
I don't think you've got the guts to use it.
Anybody else want to live?
On reflection, perhaps one shouldn't judge Walter Hill too harshly. This, after all, is a film on which 7 different people had various kinds of producer credit. That means 7 different people putting in their 2 penn'orth, 7 different sets of fingers in the pie, 7 different slices of bread dipped in the gravy. Even the best of directors, finding himself so heavily outnumbered by men in suits, might feel there's no sense in going against odds like that. Well, next week, I'll be reviewing Harrison Ford in Presumed Innocent, and we'll be looking at trailers. You know, those things they show in cinemas to advertise forthcoming attractions, which reveal all the very best bits long before you even get to see the whole movie, which in turn then turns out to be a deep disappointment anyway. So we'll be showing you how and why trailers are made, and looking at the latest developments in the video industry. Right now, though, here's a musical moment from a new Canadian film, Bye Bye Blues. Bye-bye.
Outside. To the end, just like a friend. I tried to warn you somehow. You had your way. I don't think you can behave like this down here. I'll do what I want. What about George? I haven't heard from him in more than a year. But I do know that he's having a jolly good time with someone else. So as far as I'm concerned, the marriage is over.
Wednesday on 1, and Wogan kicks off with George Best and Omar Sharif. Then at 7:35, a young doctor in love.
Women. I don't understand them at all. 8, Bergerac investigates a case of extortion.
This is going to cost you £1 million in...
Don't tell me. Krugerrands.
This is outrageous.
Perhaps he should write to points of view. Your wisdom, your wit, your letters, 10 to 9.
At 9:30, Inside Story, the confession of KGB spy George Blake.
Whenever I saw something which I thought might interest the KGB, I simply quickly photographed it.
Then Steven Spielberg's spectacular comedy, 1941.
Get rid of that shirt. It's in bad taste.
Wednesday on 1.
And now on BBC One, we share the magnificence of Blenheim Palace with Lady Victoria Leatham in the first of a new series of her visits to Britain's stately homes, noted for their airs and graces.
The story of Blenheim begins on the battlefields of Europe. Every schoolchild will remember those wonderful names of Oudenarde, Malplaquet, Ramillies, Bouchain, and a small town on the banks of the Danube, the most important of all, Blenheim. The Duke of Marlborough was not only a brilliant tactician on the battlefield, he was also a superb commander. There was nothing that the French could do to fight off this great man and his armies. No matter how hard they tried, still the battles were lost. The Duke of Marlborough has been immortalized in so many ways, but perhaps never more grandly than in this enormous silver centerpiece made by Garrards in the 19th century. And here he is seen after the engagement at Blenheim, when everything was victorious, writing to his queen. But in fact, he sent the letter to his wife, Sarah, and he wrote it on the back of a tavern bill, of all things. It's being propped up on a drum here, held by one of his colleagues. And he writes and says, "Please present my duty to the queen and tell her that her armies have had the most glorious victory here at Blenheim." And to this very day, that tavern bill is still retained here in the house at Blenheim. The building of Blenheim should have been such a happy story, but it wasn't. It was ruined by the bickering of two powerful women. One powerful because it was her nature to be so, Sarah, Duchess of Marlborough, and the other powerful because she was Queen of England, Queen Anne. Sarah Marlborough had worked for Queen Anne as a groom of the stole and a lady-in-waiting for several years, with great friendship growing up between them. The Queen, however, got fed up with Sarah's very strong character, always organising her and telling her what to do, and she supplanted her in her affections with someone called Abigail Masham. The Queen had arranged for this house to be given to Sarah and her husband John in Woodstock Park, an old hunting park belonging to the royal family, and building had started here in 1705. By 1712, everything had stopped. The reasons for this were very different. First of all, the Queen had got fed up with Sarah, as we've already discussed. And secondly, the masons and the architect, Sir John Vanbrugh, were having great difficulty with Sarah's bossy ways, her organisation on the ground. She hated this house. It wasn't what she had imagined as a tribute to her husband. As she herself once said, "I like everything to be plain and simple, from a wainscot to a lady's face." This was not her style, this titanic monument. Blenheim was once described as emphatic as an oath, and I think that's a very good description. This is all that remains of the medieval manor of Woodstock. destroyed by Sarah, 1st Duchess of Marlborough. She was not by nature a romantic or a soft-hearted individual, and looking out from her new building at Blenheim, the look of the old building, the medieval manor on the other side of the Glyme, offended her eye. She didn't like it at all. So she ordered her architect, Sir John Vanbrugh, to destroy the old medieval building, an act of architectural vandalism that perhaps has never been equalled since. But being a practical man and a little more tender-hearted than Sarah, Sir John Vanbrugh included the remains of the old medieval manor house in the bottom of his great bridge. Now, when Capability Brown was in fact making the Great Lake here at Blenheim, he didn't find any remains of the building, except that there were some rather nice turned bits of stone, actually carved stone, in the bottom of the bridge, and these are all that remain of Woodstock Manor. I made Mr. Vanbrugh my enemy, remarked Sarah, 1st Duchess of Marlborough, by having constant disputes with him over his extravagance. Now, this bridge was very much what she discovered was an extravagance. The costs of it were enormous. She said rather sourly that it had 6 rooms in which you could sit and listen to the coaches rumbling overhead, and it was so much prettier than London Bridge. Mr. Vanbrugh, in his turn, remarked that if she could find 6 rooms within the bridge, she could go and live in them. There didn't seem to be any common ground between the two. They argued as bitterly about the costs of the bridge as they did about the costs of the house. The arguments and the bitterness continued even until death. The Duchess and her architect parted company, and when, as an old man, he attempted to come into the park at Blenheim and look at his great creation, which by then was finished, he was barred admittance and wasn't allowed to cross the bridge to see it, and he died disillusioned and disappointed a couple of years later. It's inconceivable that a house like Blenheim could have an ordinary front door. And indeed, it doesn't have a precisely ordinary front door, nor does it have an ordinary lock. Now, for doors this size, you need an enormous mechanism to be able to get them to close securely at night. Now, a lock like that is operated with an equally extraordinary key. This enormous piece of cast metal made by C. Smith & Sons of Birmingham, locksmiths, bell hangers, whitesmiths, servant key, entrance doors, Blenheim, it says on it, made by C. Smith & Sons. So obviously the people who made it were just as proud of it as the family were who used it. It weighs several pounds, and it's great fun to work. First of all, we pull down a magic switch, and the key lock flies open. We then insert the key with composite strength, turn that. All is secure for the night. But the last thing hasn't been done yet. The last thing of all we have to do is to put the dust cover inside the end of the key, put it back in its padded velvet box, and close it up on its red velvet cushion. Altogether, part of a procession of grandeur that people have been carrying out in this house for generations. Having come in, having locked your door behind you, you then are faced with one of the greatest entrance halls in the whole of Britain. This was the first room that Sarah would have seen, the 1st Duchess of Marlborough, when her husband's great monument started to be built. And you can understand her saying, this is a madness and a folly. This is more like a cathedral than a front hall. This hall is overwhelming. It's a very overpowering, monumental room, and it really sets the tone for the rest of the house. It's hard to imagine sitting here today surrounded by wonderful ducal magnificence of silver-gilt serving dishes and huge candelabra, what this room must have been like in the time of John, the first Duke, and his Duchess Sarah. Imagine them sitting one each end of a large table like this, saying to each other with these extraordinary echoing acoustics, "Could I have the salt, salt, salt? Could you pass me the pepper, pepper, pepper?" Perhaps it was never intended, although, to be a cosy, at-home type of dining room. After all, they hired Louis Laguerre, the godson of Louis XIV of France, to come and paint it for them in a very grand and martial style. The reason they may have chosen him over and above his English alternative, Sir James Thornhill, was that perhaps he was cheaper. They were very careful with the pennies. They didn't like spending a lot of money on extravagant things. There are too many stories existing of their apparent meanness for it not to be so. Indeed, it is reported that when they wrote letters to one another, they failed to dot the I's in order to save ink. The present owner of Blenheim is the 11th Duke of Marlborough, and although the house is very much a family home, the invasion of visitors in the summer has driven them out, and they've had to go and live in a house down the road, just next door. But the Duke and his family move back in the moment the visitors leave in the autumn, and the house becomes full of the normal sounds of family life, with children and dogs and all the clutter that goes with it.
I remember vividly driving up here after we were married. I suddenly thought, good God, what on earth have I let myself in on? It never occurred to me beforehand. And it took a very long time for me to adjust and to be able to grasp the situation and be able to deal with a house and the running of a house as large as this one. That's a long time ago, though, I think. I felt rather like I became totally crippled by it. I couldn't walk, I couldn't talk, I couldn't think.
Come on.
It was a nightmare.
I bet you were very good at it from the word go.
No. Desperate. Absolutely desperate. I was so terrified. And one's whole life had so completely changed because before I was married, my life sort of centered around me, myself, and I was very happy with that. And suddenly, that was no more.
But it's rather an extraordinary thing, isn't it? I mean, do you ever sort of think, with slight amazement, there have been two such tremendous warriors in one family? You've got, obviously, Sir Winston Churchill, very much known to you, and then the first Duke.
Nowadays, of course, the name Winston Churchill means a tremendous amount to our American visitors. I think that they admire him more than we do, even. And all Americans who come to England, they do flock to Blenheim to see the place where he was born, where he got engaged to his wife, and of course the place where he's buried is down the bottom of the park in Blaydon.
And you knew him personally as a small boy. What was your sort of recollection of him?
He used to come down here quite often. He was very fond of my grandfather and of my parents, and he used to play Bezique, the old-fashioned card game, with my mother very often.
So you went with Sir Winston to Liverpool?
Yes, he asked me as a young boy whether I would like to accompany him on one of his visits to munition factories and bomb damage. We went on this special train up to Liverpool. And then I followed him around Liverpool and the Manchester area. As a young boy, I'd just gone to Eton, I think. It was a fascinating experience. My grandfather, once he'd set about the interior of the house, decided to do something about the exterior. He thought that the exterior didn't fit in with the grandeur of the house, and that is why he got rid of all the Victorian shrubbery that was here and put in this beautiful Italian garden. And in the center, of course, we have this lovely fountain by Waldo Sori.
Regilding them? Is that a sort of constant
battle?
Well,
the problem about regilding is the water. Is the water, one, the expense, you're right, but the water keeps on wearing it off. And it was done about I should say about 10 years ago.
Gosh.
I hope it'll last for another 10 years, but I doubt it.
now in the water terraces that were created in the 1920s by the 9th Duke and his second wife, Gladys. And she chose to have her face on the Sphinx. And it's rather an unusual thing to do, don't you think?
I wouldn't want myself remembered like that, would you?
No, nor would I. But she was quite vain, and she had this beautiful profile apart from a tiny little kink in her nose, which she had injected with paraffin in order to get the perfect Grecian profile. And this, of course, had a disastrous effect because it melted and ran down her face and caused terrible blotches.
Oh, dear.
She went quite mad. She only died about 15 years ago.
Was she the one who used to have the dogs?
Yes, yes.
Masses and masses and masses of spaniels.
Yes, there were about 120 spaniels in the front hall at Blenheim at one stage. It must have been terrible, the stench of all these Blenheim spaniels.
This is all so romantic and so... It just looks right. It looks like it's been here forever. But of course it hasn't, has it?
But it was built in the 1920s, in the early 1920s.
And they brought the water up, presumably from the lake. It's
From
all
the
pumped
lake.
up.
It's all pumped up. It's quite amazing,
Gosh, it's
isn't
quite
it?
a feat. Blenheim is famous for its collection of 18th century buhl furniture. And on hand to help us marvel at the skill of these French craftsmen is John Bly.
Well, as you'd expect for the house of this tremendous stature and importance, there is a very fine collection of the work of André Charles Boulle, the man who, in the early part of the 18th century, gave his name virtually to this type of decoration, which is a sheet of tortoiseshell, basically, and a sheet of brass glued together and fretted through to create a pattern. They are then separated and one interspersed with the other to give you this tremendous contrast. And the degree of quality and skill was such that there was no wastage. In fact, they used the alternate sheets to make what we now call boule and contre boule. And you have basically, I suppose, the best examples that you could wish to see, because on the one here, you've got the background of brass and the pattern in the tortoiseshell. While on this one, you have precisely the reverse.
Thank you.
Isn't that lovely?
Very rare to find.
Absolutely, and I think that this is, as I say, one of the best examples of boule and contre boule on public display anywhere. But it was never as popular in England as it was on the continent during the 18th century, not until after about 1815, when we started to make it in England, and then it was virtually mass-produced for the rest of the century. Now, the important thing is, for today's collectors, that the 18th century version is extremely expensive. I mean, worth fortunes. Whereas the 19th century, of course, is much cheaper. There is one way of telling. The table behind you has a piece broken away. And look, if we look at this drawer, or door front, do you see how tremendously thick that veneer is? That's the layer of brass and tortoiseshell. In the 19th century, it was paper thin. And that's a good guide. But of course, they didn't just use brass and tortoiseshell, they used other materials as well. Pewter was extremely popular. We've got an example in this casket. But of course, once popular, there were no restraints to the enthusiasm and excesses to which they could use it, such as an example like this. And this is a marriage casket, reputedly made for the Dauphin, of which there are only 5 others in the world, they say. And look at this inside here. First, we'll lift up the first top, and here you can see the traditional colouring of tortoiseshell, which is this deep mottled brown, and the pewter and brass inlay work, marquetry. And I suppose you've kept little secrets in there. In fact, we've got a key, and I'm now going to lock this one, and you'll see why in a second. 2 locks, typical fine French lock. 2 turns, and then we lift this one. And there, isn't that marvellous? I'm going to put the key inside there, lest we lose it. And here you've got, again, all this tremendous work and tortoiseshell, fine, chaste and repoussé, mercurially gilt mounts. But what I love is the fact that all the metalwork here is beveled, all those lovely beveled edges. Very, very smart.
They did
as one
everything
would
except the
expect.
screws. They let it down on the screws, don't they?
Yes, you're not supposed to notice that.
Oh, I didn't notice the screws.
The other thing is, you see these carrying handles?
Mhm.
Well, now, if you look inside, they're not actually carrying handles. You've kept little secrets in there. And the same at the side. Right,
They
I'll
were a
pull
very
this up.
secretive lot to need a casket like this, wasn't it? They tried to hide.
All sorts of little love letters and special things. Now, I've got, aha, there, you see, to keep those closed, you've got, again, mercurially gilded little pins which drop into those holes to stop them being opened. The marvellous thing, it really is quite exceptional. I'm going to lower that. And now, yet more. Lift up the flaps, open these. Wait a minute, we've got the slide. Open those, and they disclose yet more secret drawers. But the exciting thing about these is that, you see, the background is blue. When new, it must have looked quite startling. Bright blue and this grey pewter in contrast. Lovely. And here in the green drawing room, we've got a setting which I think actually embodies Blenheim grandeur with this enormous commode, a wonderful clock, and then this incredible mirror. I think...
Sorry, can I just ask you one thing? This word commode causes a lot of upset. The British understand by a commode something that has a great deal to do with Jimmy Young, but the French understand something quite different. What is the explanation?
Yes, we're using the word here in its correct term to describe a French chest of drawers.
Right.
From the mid-18th century. But because we were always searching for polite terms for mundane pieces of furniture, we also started to apply it rather more later, I think in the early 19th century, to describe a piece of furniture which was basically the loo, which went upstairs in the bedroom, formerly called a clothes stool. And because we then started to disguise that as a small chest of drawers, people then called that the commode, but put the stress on the latter part of the word, so you've got commode. So you are, in fact, describing two separate pieces of furniture, and commode, in this context, will always apply to an expensive and very beautiful chest of drawers. A commodious piece is where it comes from.
Right.
So you have
Let's
to
clear that up. Now, be careful when you put your socks at night, so you make sure you get the right one.
So if they're made in pairs, it's very difficult.
Extremely confusing.
So anyway, we have this wonderful commode, this sort of serpentine or Bombay shape, so it curves both ways. And then, of course, above this is probably the finest Rococo mirror, that is an English mirror made in the French style. This was made, two designs by maybe Chippendale, maybe Batty Langley, but made by Inson Mayhew, extremely famous and well-known makers at the time. But I mean, just look at it. Only those two columns are straight. The rest is one curve leading into another. And you've got this most extraordinary elaboration of feathers, flowers, scrolls.
Wonderful birds.
Yes, very Chinese, you see, almost like oho birds. So you've got this sort of Chinese Chippendale influence coming in. So it is the finest example of its type in England. And if anybody wants to see, well, this is where they've got to come.
Blenheim Palace is very rich in its collection of Oriental porcelain, much of it on show to the public, as it is here in the first great hall. To help explain it to me and to share my enthusiasm for it is Gordon Lang. Welcome, Gordon.
Thank you very much.
Now, we've got a cabinet here absolutely bulging with blanc de Chine, that extraordinary material from China. Tell us about it.
Well, blanc de Chine is made in the south of China, in a place called Dewa, and they made undecorated, generally undecorated, white material like this. They produced these sort of wares, but they also produced this kind of thing here. This is a marvelous object. Now, this is called a Marco Polo censer.
Right.
And
I've never met one of those before. Are they very rare?
Well, at one time it was thought that Marco Polo brought an identical one of these back to Venice, because in the treasure at St. Mark's you've got exactly the same piece.
But I mean, Marco Polo is 14th century, so that's dotty.
Of course he is, but this is one of the typical old stories that come along and have some sort of credence. But this, of course, is 1700, 1725. The most common censer in Europe of the period. So there we are. So Marco Polo bites the dust. But production was mainly geared to figures, and you have all sorts of figures, local deities, Putai Ho Shang, you have other Taoist immortals,
But here we have this rather amusing little group. What amused me certainly, there's two lovers here and the disapproving intended father-in-law glowering round behind the door. And we have that.
That's like a German fairing, isn't it? It's like those little things, last in bed puts out the light.
Exactly the same.
Same sense of humour.
Exactly the same. Marvellous for the European market. The most common figure of all are these figures here, tall ones, called Guanyin, the goddess of mercy. But once they came to Europe, I just want to pick this one out here.
Oh, hang on.
That's right.
Can you manage that?
Yeah. Once you get to this one, you can see it wasn't a huge leap in imagination to call this Virgin and Child.
No.
And that's how they sold them. It's most unusual. I think there's only a couple of other collections of this size in Europe.
What a privilege to be able to open the door and look at it properly.
Right.
The icing on the cake at Blenheim has to be these astonishing stone trophies overlooking the North Court, carved by Grinling Gibbons. Now, Grinling Gibbons had a problem here because not only should the things be able to be seen from the ground, but they also had to be able to be viewed from the house by the Duke and his guests coming out under the portico and by the people looking out through the windows. So he had to pay just as much attention to the backs as he did to the fronts. And my word, didn't he succeed well, because everything on the back of these trophies of war, as they're called, is beautifully carved. We've got drums and rifle butts and cannons and banners, absolutely everything you'd expect to see in a battle scene. All for £40, which is so amazing as well. But it does also prove that Grinling Gibbons, at his best, was not just a man who turned out pretty picture frames and swags of fruit and flowers. When he chose, he could be the most monumental of masons. Absolutely brilliant performance.
And not the legs.
That fooled you, didn't it?
Had no idea you were so gifted.
It's just the same thing happened to my grandfather. He told his guests that he was going to give them an organ recital after dinner. So they brought them all into this room and was marching quickly towards the organ here at the end, intending to get there before somebody pressed the button on the organola, but unfortunately it started up before he was sitting on the seat by the organ. So he too was caught out.
Good and proper.
Now this is a lovely room. It's 188 feet long, and it originally housed the Sunderland Library, which unfortunately was sold. It was then a picture gallery. A lot of the pictures, unfortunately, were then sold. And then it was returned to a library by my grandfather. A lot of important occasions have taken place in this room. Every year we have a charitable concert here in aid of music therapy. It's called the Winston Churchill Memorial Concert. And we get some prominent statesman, politician, to come and pay the tribute to Sir Winston. And always at the end of the concert, we traditionally now end up with the Pomp and Circumstance by Elgar.
We join Lady Victoria Leatham again next week as she tours Newby Hall, a recently restored Adam house near Ripon in Yorkshire, at 11:40 again next Tuesday on BBC One. Now we move on to the weather. Scotland and Northern Ireland will have showers overnight and severe gales in the north, whilst a band of wind and